everyone. My name is Kareem Merchant. I'm the creative specialist here at KeyShot. I'll be kicking us off. Welcome to our LED and transparent materials webinar. As of late, we've been collaborating with several customer speakers to bring everyone informative webinars on topics that are relevant to many of our daily use cases and needs. Today is no different, and we're incredibly excited to have Marina Hunter here from Hi Viz Lighting to share how KeyShot plays a role in their printed marketing and overall branding pipeline. I don't want to say too much because I know Marina has a ton of great info for you guys, but HiViz really does create some incredible lighting solutions for first responders and really brings an innovative approach to their products. But before I hand it over to Marina, I wanted to do some quick housekeeping. If you've tuned into our recent webinars, you've probably heard this before. Let me go ahead and switch. As some of you know, we've introduced a newly updated forum for our KeyShot community called Luminaries. Highly recommend checking out Luminaries if you get a chance. It's a great place to connect with the rest of the KeyShot community, get feedback on your work, and even get answers to questions you might be struggling with. We also have KeyShot challenges running regularly on the forum, which help you practice your skills while earning points towards KeyShot products, such as full subscription licenses and even programs like Will Gibbons' Rendering Masterclass. It's also the main place to participate in our live betas, to get info on new upcoming features and connect with other beta users in the process. Again, I highly recommend giving Luminaries a try. If you want to get there quickly, you can scan the QR code on this slide or simply just jump over to your browser, type in KeyShot Luminaries. It should be the first thing that pops up there. Aside from Luminaries, another great way to get info on our latest release features is through our KeyShot 3D YouTube channel. We regularly post quick tips and tutorials for all our latest features, and it's the best place to go for tips and tricks that can help speed up your project workflows. We also post all our webinars here after airing live, as well as presentations from events like KeyShot World or IDSA. Our latest KeyShot World post is an interview with legendary Hollywood vehicle designer Daniel Simon, so definitely check that out if you get a chance. And on the subject of KeyShot World, just a quick plug for our upcoming KeyShot World Chicago. If you're in Chicago mid-October, we have 2 in-person events happening. KeyShot World on the 18th, which will be a half-day event. Tickets are on sale for $99, and our one and only Don Tuttle will be holding an animation workshop the following day on the 19th. I think we still have a couple spots available for the training session, so if you're in the area, if you're interested in attending either event, make sure to book your tickets right away. And with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Marina Hunter. Marina, feel free to kick us off whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much to Kareem and to Arlene, the KeyShot team, for setting this up. Really excited to get to talk to you guys today, share a little bit about our KeyShot story, how it really made a big impact with us earlier this year. You know, sometimes with what we're working on, we have to figure things out at the last moment. There are, you know, quickly changing circumstances, got to come up with some quick solutions. And that's where KeyShot really came in and played in big time for us this year. So early January, February, we were getting ready for our big trade show. It's the biggest trade show in the fire industry. It's kind of where all the big companies are coming out and, you know, showing off all their new stuff. So you got new fire trucks, new lights, you know, the helmets, all kinds of fun stuff. And we were prepping for that show. So, you know, I do graphic design. We're working on print materials from product catalogs to the booth design, all kinds of stuff. And then we got the news that we were going to have the actual new lights, these new products in hand until a couple weeks before the show. So with us, you know, that put us into a little bit of a panic mode because we normally do our product photography, get visuals, all this stuff to include in our catalogs and everything. And we weren't going to be able to do that. So we needed to come up with a solution. So let's jump in. I'll tell you a little bit about me first. My name is Marina Hunter. I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design. I love working here at HiViz. I worked for another company that was, you know, a fast growing company in our area for a couple of years before joining HiViz. HiViz has been a great fit. We get to work on all kinds of different projects from, I've gotten to do our vehicle demo wraps. You see the Hummer there in the photo, get to work on vehicle wraps, trade show stuff, and even work with our engineers. We have a great team of engineers. One of them is a mechanical engineer. He does all of our SolidWorks, CAD files, all that kind of stuff. And then I get to, you know, get those from him and play with the fun stuff in KeyShot. So really fun experience, and tell you a little bit about HiViz. So HiViz FireTech, we specialize in emergency vehicle lighting. So, you know, the flashing warning lights you see on fire trucks, ambulances, when they're responding to a call down the road, we make those kind of lights. We also make the really bright floodlight, like scene lights. So if you see them at night working like an accident on the side of the road or anything like that, and they've got those bright white lights so they can see what they're doing, those are also lights that we make. So, we're really passionate about making sure that they can do their job safely and effectively, daytime, after dark, because they're serving our communities, communities that you and I live in. We want them to be able to do their jobs, have reliable lights, and, not really even have to think about the lighting too much. Just know that they can see these lights work and, provide them with a reliable product. So, when we decided to go with KeyShot, because we weren't going to have the opportunity to photograph these lights and any of that kind of stuff for the catalog, it really, it gave us a new tool. It gave us a new option that we had never really used before. And we had used it some with our instruction manuals and stuff, but not when it came to the photorealistic side of things. So, I knew that I was going to have to learn quite a bit. So, the instruction manuals, we really use the tune materials. It's almost like a cartoon looking thing. If you don't use, KeyShot for instruction manuals with your business and you have that opportunity, highly recommend you looking into using KeyShot and, tune materials. It can speed up your workflow. It took a lot of like illustration time away from us. We can just bring in those products and have good visuals and everything. But that's a very different style than, photorealistic rendering and trying to make it look like the real product, what you're seeing in real life. So for me, there was a learning curve there. So, YouTube, as he had mentioned before, KeyShot has a great YouTube page, lots of resources, quick tips, some of the webinars and everything. That was the first place that I really dove into, because KeyShot has a lot there. And then there's a lot of other artists and designers and stuff that have really great tutorials out there as well. So, that's really my first place where I really dug into. And then there's also the master classes. Will Gibbons, he released that material masterclass earlier this year. We jumped on that one because I'm the type of person, I like to know all the details. I like to know when I'm adjusting those properties with the materials, like what am I controlling? What am I able to do? Those masterclasses are great for getting to know a lot more details as to what you're doing and what you're controlling. So highly recommend checking out some of those masterclasses. There's the rendering ones, the material and animation. They're great stuff. And then also, the Luminary community, as you mentioned before, it's also a great source because there's a lot of artists out there that are sharing their stuff, bringing their problems up and, looking for solutions. And there's just a great community there. And then you can also, do the challenges and stuff they do there. You get the coins back. You can actually turn those in to get, master classes or licenses. It really is a great community and a great resource. So, he'd mentioned them before, but really want to say that's where I really dug into to learn more about, the photorealistic side of things. So it's very different from what I was working on before. So once you did that, the next step is just getting started, jump into it, put some work in. We had our Omen warning light bar and our Guardian warning smart lights. We were releasing, they're very different, but those were our two products we were really releasing and needed the capture in KeyShot to be able to use in some of our materials. So here's a look at the warning light bar. These are very early renderings. Don't judge too harshly. This is, trial and error phase, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Learning a little bit more with the emissive material and, playing with the bloom a little bit, tweaking the plastic, materials that work on the lenses and everything. And there's, so much that you can adjust to try to control and, change based on your environment and everything. So, that's kind of what we were playing with here. And so I chose to work with the red and the white colors and everything. These light bars can do multiple different colors. You'll see a little bit more of that later on. But this is just kind of look at the beginning phases of, trying to figure out with these lights and try to get that going. And this is a look at those Guardian warning scene lights. So top left there, you can see that we're working with the emissive material for these LEDs still. It was not working well for these lights like it worked a little bit better with the warning light bar. It wasn't quite filling out. These are really high powered lights that really, flood the area with color, the lens and everything. We have clear lenses on ours. They're not colored lenses. But when those lights light up, it just floods the light with color. And the emissive just wasn't quite giving us what we were looking for at this point. So if you look at the bottom right one, we actually made the switch to using the area light material. Made a huge difference with these renderings. It was actually a recommendation from Will when I jumped in our material master class and kind of, brought the problem up and everything. And he made the suggestion on really trying and working with the area light. worked really well for this. It was able to capture, we have side facing or side firing LEDs that light up the side of the fire truck. You can see that a little bit here. It really captured that high power output. So that's a little bit more of where we started to go with these lights and made a really big difference. So even if, emissive material is what we're used to using for LEDs for the most part. But if it's not working for you, try some other stuff and see if you can't get it to work a little bit, because we had a lot more control and a lot better results with this. So once we had those products, we had a good foundation of building and working with them and, trying to get them where we're going to be. Then we had the catalog to think about. So we normally feature fire trucks from around the country with our lights on them. We go on content trips and we go visit these fire departments and meet with these people, talk to them about their trucks and their lights. And we like to feature these trucks in our catalogs. These new lights, they weren't out there, they're newly going, we're getting ready to release them. They weren't on any trucks out there. So it's not like we could photograph them at that point on trucks. So something that we had to keep in the back of our mind to try to replace some of those images. We also wanted to use it in our cover images because, these are our brand new awesome products. We want to, showcase them and, really put it out there and use that, good space on the catalog. And then also we had key feature examples we wanted to show. The light bar specifically, it's very unique. It looks very different from other ones in the industry that most people are used to seeing, and it can do a lot of really cool stuff. So instead of just saying, hey, this is what it can do, we want to be able to show some of that because, you're going to be able to see that stuff when you've got the light. So that's one of the other things we were considering at this point. So this is a look into our key feature pages that we were doing in our catalog and, trying to capture some of those really fun, new, unique things about this light bar. So it's a modular light bar. We wanted to be able to show, the pieces that actually make up on the extrusion. So we were able to do some pulled apart views. The top view shows, it's a little bit unique. It's not just one big piece, and it actually has an empty bottom there. One of the biggest killers of these lights is moisture along with heat. And we have a great ventilation system on these, and there's nowhere for the moisture to accumulate, which is an awesome feature. So we were able to capture that there. We also have a command on demand feature, which was really cool because, you go to one of these really big fire scenes that they're at, and there's multiple departments there helping out. There's normally one area where, that's the command center, and that's where everybody goes, get their orders on what they're doing. And they can actually show that by, illuminating all their truck in green. If they've got multiple fixtures that have green LEDs and they've got the light bar and stuff, they can basically put it out as the beacon of, that's where everybody needs to go. So there's another fun thing. We're able to show, the sensor on one of the back of our lights with KeyShot. And then also a, future thing that we're going to do is water level indicator. So normally when they're running the water out of the trucks, there's the guy we're running the pump and they can see, the water levels on where they are and everything. This feature would actually connect with that and be able to show through the light bar how much water's left in the tank on the truck. So it's not just the guy running the panel that can see. All these other people can see it as well. So, really cool feature there, stuff that we were able to capture and actually show and not just have to talk about because, it's really what draws people in. So here's a look at catalog covers. So we've got the warning light bar looks a little bit different from what you're seeing in those earlier renderings there. Emissive material looked great for these. We actually used the color fade node in the material graph with the emissive material. So by using that, we were able to make a little bit brighter of a hot spot where those LEDs are. So normally where all that light's coming from with the LEDs, it's a bit brighter, especially when you're working with colors. And then, a little bit of the darker color comes flowing out from that. So once we included that, it gave us, a little bit more of that realistic look and, dramatic area for the cover of the catalog. So that was really fun. And then you can see the back cover. We were able to use the guardian warning lights there and capture a little bit. We were still using the emissive material at that point in time. I hadn't started the material masterclass at that point. So that's what you see there. But it was really important that we were able to capture and get, these show visuals of these new lights and people be able to take these catalogs home with them that have, the visuals, and they can be reminded and see all the new stuff that was coming out. So it worked out great for us. And then one of the solutions that we ended up including in the catalog was being able to work with a 3D model of a fire truck. So dug in our files and stuff when we're able to find this fire truck and be able to put our lights on the fire truck and show the practical application of where we would recommend putting these lights on this type of truck. They can see, how it mounts onto the truck, see the light bar, just give it a little bit more something that's not just, the light standing alone. It's the application of where it goes on the truck. So it was a great scene. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect by any means. I don't have tons of experience working on the vehicles. I've seen what you guys can do in luminaries with some of these like exotic vehicle stuff and everything, and it is unreal. And I am looking forward to getting to work a little bit more on, adding some stuff to the tire treads, making it look more realistic and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to keep digging into that, but wanted to share that because it helped a lot with showing where these lights go and how they would look on a fire truck. So once we finished the catalog, we moved on to the booth. So the booth, it was a little bit quicker turnaround time. We were able to do the catalog first and then switch to the booth. We decided not to go with, generic branding all over the booth because we wanted to highlight these new lights. We wanted, the booth takes up a big space. We had a great spot at the show. The booth, it was a fairly large booth. We wanted to be able to add those products to the booth, draw people in. It's, the unique design. It looks really cool. It's a brand new thing. We want people to see it and it draw them in because the booth's one of the first things they see when they're walking through the show. So we decided to go through and actually, make some dramatic scenes and add these lights there. You can see on the bottom left there, that is our booth at the actual show. And that's our Hummer demo truck with the actual light bar on it. And then there's also the big video panel, which I'll get to talk about in a little bit, but that's a big, massive video wall in the middle. It was really cool. The middle image there, it was a standalone panel that went with the booth. We went with the warning lights there, the surface mounted ones, and really fun thing that we didn't even know about when we were first doing it. It actually lit up inside of that standalone panel and it made it look like the lights were on, which was really cool. Awesome. It turned out really well. We were really excited about it. And then we did the Omen light bar for, on the main panels of the booth. And one of them even wrapped from the front to the side. We were able to get them to really nicely line up, which as a designer, that's something we always worry about, but we got it to line up real well. It worked out awesome. We had great feedback from customers on, using this and getting to see the new lights and everything. And it was a really cool booth display. So a little about the video wall. So the middle of that booth, it's a massive video wall that's made up of panels and stuff. And so we got tasked with putting together animations and stuff of about an hour's worth of footage that we could loop at the show and have stuff playing that customers could see and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to promote our podcast, we've got some really cool social pages. So we did some promotions there, but we also wanted to bring some of those catalog pages to life. We wanted to bring, those key features that we've been talking about, really highlight the new products. We did some fun, logo transitions, highlight these products, and we were able to use KeyShot and do some really basic animations to go along with these key features. So here's a look at the video wall. These are some pictures from our warehouse when we were setting up for and getting ready for the trade show. So you can see, we talked about the night mode. It's got the sensor on the back. We did a fun, rotation as all that text and everything is moving across the screen. It flowed into, we talked about the modular design. We had an animation with the light bar, pulling apart, showing the different modules and going together. It flowed really nicely across the screen. And then we also did one with the fire truck, which I've included in here. It's a quick 10-second video. We did a fun glass material on the fire truck just to kind of give it, a fun techie type feel. So I'll let you take a peek at that here. So just a fun animation, little bit of flashing. Wanted to talk about, the smart side of things. So it worked out real well. Very excited with how everything turned out for the booth. So once the show was over and we were able to, digest, think about the things that worked, didn't work, all that kind of stuff. We got to realize, we didn't have to rely on product photography so much anymore. Because, it kind of ties you down. It gives you string. You're limited of what you can do. Product photography is great. And you get, the crisp, real images and everything. But KeyShot gives us some new opportunities and some creative freedom because you can create all kinds of scenes, studio setups. Your imagination is the limit. That's the thing. There's so much that you can do. And KeyShot turned into a really great tool that I know we'll be using even more in the future. We've started using it on our website and so many other things as well. So I'm really happy that, we ended up having that opportunity to use KeyShot in the way that we did. And I included there's a photo of us after all our big booth setup and everything. That's me and our CEO, Sam, there. And it was great. We had a great time and it came together really well. So I want to share some later renderings. So that was all back in April. We finished all this up. I've continued to learn and, work through some more of that materials masterclass, learn a little bit more and keep pushing these renderings. Because as you know, for me, these renderings are never actually complete. I'm always learning new things and tips and tricks to, make them better. So just wanted to share a little bit of where I started when, I didn't have as much of an understanding and where we got to. So this is a look at one of our ambulance market lights. This is actually a warning light and a scene light combined. You can see the bright whites of the scene light, the color of the warning lights. It presents, it's a tricky thing to work with. The bottom left corner there, you can see an actual photo of a red version of it. This is an amber version in the rendering, but we really wanted to capture, keep some of that light in the lens. It's a little bit of a cloudy material on the lens. And we did some post work to get, that like a little bit more glow to it. I'm still learning how to fight the fireflies, especially when it comes to the scene lights, because, bright white lights, we've got a chrome housing on it and everything. So there's some stuff, I'm still learning through and working through, but these are getting, they're getting to a really good point. We're getting to a much better look, not just a flat basic, not getting that realistic looking light from it. It's getting to a much better place. This is a look at a standard Guardian warning light that we have in our ambulance market. There's a red version of it in the corner of it, how it looks like in real life. We're able to finally get it to where the LEDs actually have that bright glow. You can see that's where the light's coming from. It's a little bit brighter than the rest of it. And actually that color, it fills up that lens, which is, it's a struggle to get some of that high output, not have as many fireflies and, some of the speckles and everything. This actually, it filled up the lens. There's a little bit of post work done on it for the glow, but it really it was night and day once we transformed using the area light with these lights compared to the emissive materials. Now this is a look at what I consider, this is my problem child rendering. This is the smart Guardian warning light that you saw that we were working on for the show. So, I'd look at where we were with the emissive material once we moved to an area light material. There's a photo at the bottom. You can see there's a really hot spots where those LEDs are, where that's almost orange and yellow looking and it's real bright and everything. We're getting there with this one. The fun thing with this is trying to make sure you don't lose too much of the lens. So when you go super high with some of that output and stuff, you can lose a little bit of that lens detail. I'm getting closer. I'm still working on this one. We're getting closer to where it needs to be, but I wanted to show you just even the big difference from where we were before and where we're getting to now with this light. And then this is that command on demand feature that I talked about earlier. There's a photo of it in the bottom. Once we were able to actually, have the lights photograph it, see exactly what it was going to look like, because before we were really working from a concept. We had an idea of what it was going to look like, but we didn't have the actual product in our hands. So we didn't have, an exact replica and can make it exactly what we wanted it to be. So here you can see, once we actually had the product in hand, we were able to, see where it's that bright white, where the light's coming from that middle bar, really, fills the lens with some of that color. And we got so much closer with it, once we knew exactly what it was going to look like. But the fact that we were able to, do the rendering before, give a good example of, what it can do and where that light's coming from and everything, it still really was a great tool for us. And I'm really excited where we're going to keep going with this and keep learning and growing, because these are going to only get better. And then here's a look of, the traditional style with the warning light bar. So before we were working with, the red and the white and everything. I started transition to playing with the blues with the red. You can see kind of those hotspots from those red LEDs down below in the image. We started playing with that a little bit here. One of the tricks that I ended up having to do with this light was the actual panel that the LEDs are on is what I'm actually using for that red emissive, because it actually fills the lens the way that it looks like when you see it in person. Now, that's not necessarily how it works in real life, but to be able to capture what it looks like when you really see the product, it gave me a better look, being able to put that emissive material on that whole piece that goes underneath, and then actually do a orangey yellow for the LEDs so that you can capture kind of where that hot spot, like you see in the image, is getting us a lot closer. And we're really happy where this is starting to turn out. So definitely come a very long way with some of these renderings, and really excited where this is going. So let's open this up for some questions. Kareem, I'll let you jump back in here.
Awesome. Yeah, feel free to use that Q&A chat box if you guys have questions. Go ahead and throw some in there. I have a few here. One that I actually have. I know you touched on it at the beginning, kind of
Yep.
your starting stages with KeyShot, but what really put you on to KeyShot? Was that something you guys were already using in like a limited capacity? Did you pick that up in school? Kind of where did that come from?
Yeah. So when I started here, so our CEO, Sam, he actually has a decent little bit of knowledge with KeyShot, and he was using it before I even started here. And he's the one that put me onto it, and I started using it in our instruction manuals. And then that was kind of when we faced that task of, we weren't going to be able to actually photograph these lights, and we needed to, have some type of visual. I knew the capacity because I was always interested in KeyShot. It works great for the instruction manuals, but I could tell, and like you look at the materials, you can see what it can do, and you go online and you see what other people can do. It's unreal. And so that was when we were like, we're going to invest the time and go into it and, see what we can do. So that's a little bit of how I really got into that one.
Awesome. And I'm glad you actually mentioned the tune material a few times through the presentation because a lot of people don't use the tune material since their whole goal is to create a really photorealistic image.
Yep.
But tune material is awesome, especially when you're in like the early stages and you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
commit to anything specifically. Great way to kind of show color ideas, some general outlines.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the illustrations. If you think IKEA with the instructional manuals, super easy to make kind of line drawings almost. So
Oh yeah.
that's always
It
really, really
it
nice.
it just it speeds up. You can show so many different angles, and you can do zoom in, like you can zoom in right on it. And our mechanical engineer, he puts together, great files. They're so detailed, and everything is there. So once we put that tune material to it, and address some of that contour and everything, it just not having to do those illustrations by hand and everything. It just it helps so much. It has been an absolute great tool for us for the instruction manuals.
I'm glad to hear. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like whenever you're working with a great file that has all kinds of detail, it just makes it
Yes.
so much
Oh,
easier.
it's amazing.
It's like 90% of the battle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Which I don't have to fight that battle as much. I've got somebody that does that for me and does a great job.
Awesome. I know you've mentioned a little kind of the combination of physical lights with the area light and the emissives that you're using. We had a question that has to do with light dispersion and
Mhm.
creating realistic LEDs. Basically what you're talking about, getting that cast light going. I mean, you mentioned
Mhm.
bloom. I use bloom all the time, and I actually overdo it when I'm doing it. I
Yep.
crank up the radius, I make it super overpowered, and then I pull back that threshold a little bit.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you're mixing both emissive and area light. Is that what I
Yeah,
understand?
so the emissive actually worked great for the warning light bar. It has, for even that middle row, it's actually got like an opaque lens in the middle row of that warning light bar. The emissive material works great for that. It really good there. It just did not work when it was coming to those surface lights, and I
Yeah.
struggled with it for so long. But with the area light, because you can really control the lumens and really crank that output up and everything, it made a huge difference with those specific lights. But when I tried it with our warning light bar, it totally different outcome.
Yeah, I'm back to what we were talking about before we actually came on here. It's always like you're gonna have to tweak things based on the
Oh
environment.
gosh, yeah.
How
And
what
I'll put this out there. Before I was not necessarily doing things in the best workflow, but the multi-material tool in KeyShot, if you're not using it, please use it. So, when you're changing environments and stuff, sometimes especially the lenses, for me, the lenses will start to act kind of funny and I'll have to tweak the lenses. You can just duplicate that material and make changes and flip back and forth to your original and see the changes. It's so helpful, especially like I said, changing environments, tweaking on things, and you don't want to ruin your original if it's better than what you're going to start tweaking and everything. Great way to do it.
Yeah, I tend to do that a lot too, and it's a non-destructive way of working, so that's
Exactly.
a
It's
positive.
perfect.
We
Yep.
got a question here. I know again we talked about HDRIs a little earlier. What do you prefer when it comes to studio lighting, HDRIs or physical lights?
Ooh, um, I use a mixture. I like to use, I like to add the actual physical lights in for certain studio ones, but I have found, outside of like a dark studio setting, the HDRI tends to work a little bit better sometimes and not cause as many like fireflies. I was working with trying to do a bright white, like clean looking rendering with the product and everything. And when I was using the physical lights, I was getting a lot of artifacts and lots of fireflies and stuff. And ended up combating that a little bit with I ran into it on I think it was on the luminary. Somebody had said like building like this box type thing around it to help with
Mhm.
cutting down some of these fireflies and stuff. And I, kind of followed through they were talking about it for a whole different kind of thing, but it ended up working really well. So when in those bright, bright ones, I tend to use the HDRI a little bit more. And then some of the dark studio type settings, I do like to use some of the, physical lights. It just kind of depends on what you're working with. No one scene and environment's going to be the exact same thing for the next thing you're working on. It's an ever changing thing.
100%. That's how I work too. And a lot of the time, the physical lights are going to cast a lot more realistic shadows. It's going to create
Yes.
a more one-to-one realistic effect that you would experience in a studio if you're actually photographing something. I like HDRIs when I'm doing something quick too, just because one, it's going to
Yes.
render a lot. It's going to be a lot faster on rendering. I don't have to deal with those hotspots, highlights, less
Yep.
post-production work. Most of the time I'm mixing it. I have kind of like a standard 3-point HDRI that I use for all my scenes. And then from there, I'll use physical lights to kind of spotlight details, or if I want to create like a caustic or a specific
Yep.
shadow, that's where I'll work
Oh
from.
yeah, absolutely.
Which actually kind of leads into the other question I got too, which was how do you keep noise and fireflies down? So yeah, I mean, I'm always messing around with that firefly filter. Sometimes it kills those highlights, which is a problem.
Yeah.
That's always a kind of
It's a fine line working with
yeah.
those. And, I don't normally go too high with it. I'll jump up a little bit with, it's kind of a balance between the denoise and the firefly.
Yep.
And you know what, even if you can't get it quite perfect, just spend a little bit more time in post, cleaning up a little bit. And that's made a big difference, especially once we started using, the area lights for the, the scene lights, the bright whites. Sometimes I have to spend a little bit more working on it. And I'm still, still fine tuning and figuring out the best way to do it. But it's a fine line to make sure you don't lose, some of that detail and some of those highlights, but combat the fireflies a little bit. There's just, it's just something you got to play with till you can figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I usually end up encountering more fireflies when I'm using like a glass or metallic object, something
Oh,
that's got a
absolutely.
lot of reflectivity,
Yes.
which
Oh,
also
yes.
is unfortunate because when I'm pulling those firefly filter on and denoise, that's where you're crushing those
Oh,
highlights. Or,
yes.
you want those really, really bright
Yep.
highlights. So
Oh, I
yeah, I
know.
mean, as much as I try to stay in KeyShot as much as humanly possible,
Yeah.
sometimes doing that little bit of post work afterwards is worth it.
Yeah, exactly. It just, like I said, it depends on where you can get it through in KeyShot. I mean, you spend your time all the way through it. And like I said, if you're still dealing with it, just spend a little extra time in post at that point.
Definitely. We got a question here that says, are you able to correlate the light values inside of KeyShot for your LEDs to values in the real world? How do you work
Yeah,
around that?
so we actually measure our light output for our lights. We have there's raw lumens and effective lumens. There's a whole process they go through and measure these things. When I'm using the area light, you can literally program the exact lumen amount in there and everything. Now, sometimes I'm honestly just playing it, by eye, because sometimes it doesn't look exactly like what it looks like in the real world and stuff in when you're in the digital space. Sometimes you're just kind of tweaking it to make it look as realistic as possible. But if you can, and if you know like how much lumens what you're using is putting out and stuff, you can actually plug that in with the area light material, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's the benefit of using the actual physical lights, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, I don't know if you guys have messed with this at all. Volumetric lighting where you're trying to get the beams casting through like a fog or actually getting the visual of those beams being cast. We had a question about how to do that. I don't know if you guys ever do that. I can
I
chime in.
haven't played with that as much. The main thing that I was really playing with is kind of similar, was trying to get the light on that one that has that side firing LEDs to come through the lens and light up that like panel that I had it on to see the light, because the big thing about that is when you put them on a fire truck, it's actually illuminating the truck so people can see the truck, which is a big deal. So that's more of what I've messed with it and tried to get it to come through the lens properly. I haven't really worked on the smoke side of things. I've seen there's a lot of people that do that kind of stuff, but that's not something I have as much experience with.
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit there too. So, for a technical term, we always call it volumetric lighting. You're basically catching the volume of the light ray going through. There's
Right.
a quick tip on volumetric lighting. If any of you guys do have that question, you guys can check it out. Essentially, all we're doing is we're using like an area light or a spotlight. I typically use a spotlight because I can focus the direction, or I'll
Mhm.
mask something so I can get that light ray punching through. And then we have a material called scattering medium. So essentially you just put a
Mhm.
giant piece of geometry over your scene, you add some scattering medium, you throw your light in there, and then that scattering medium, you can think about it as like little particles floating through space. So when the light hits those particles, you're capturing the shape of that light. So if you're trying to create a light beam, look up volumetric lighting. There's all kinds of info, including our quick tips. So
Very cool.
that's fun. It could be cool if you're, especially
Yeah.
fire truck
I'm gonna have to
in a
check that
smoky
one out. That
environment,
sounds
right?
awesome.
Yeah, so that one's if you're looking for light beams, volumetric lighting, I highly recommend checking that out. We got a question here. It's a little bit more about your timeline on learning, the learning curve when you picked up KeyShot here.
Yeah.
Basically, they're asking what the learning curve, like kind of the timeline was for you to learn animation and getting that stuff up and running for that first big trade show you did.
Yeah, so I'd been working in KeyShot a little bit before and before all of that, but really January leading up until, it was about a solid month to month and a half of, really spending a ton of time learning. I had been doing some learning before that and everything, and I was familiar with, the basics of KeyShot and how things worked and how to toggle through things. So I did already have, that basic understanding, but it was I spent a lot of hours really working. Now, the animation side of things, I am not proficient in animation. I can do, small little things. I've been playing with some of the like environmental animation, the environmental light animation stuff. There's some really cool stuff you can do. But as far as like going in depth with animation, that's something that I'm planning on, learning a bit more and getting more in depth in. I really do want to do Will Goodman, he's got that animation master course.
Yeah.
That's something I'm looking into doing. But expect to spend a bunch of time not just learning, but actually getting in and just, trying different things out and stuff. I mean, you do want to spend the time. But like I said, I think it was about a month and a half of me, really digging into things and just trial and error in my own stuff and trying to get things to work and getting a better understanding of what I was working with.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad you keep mentioning Will, because even when I was in design school and I was kind of picking up KeyShot at the very beginning, it was actually Will, his videos that I referenced. So
Yeah,
Will's responsible for a lot of people figuring out KeyShot.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, to anybody who's interested, I recommend checking out his master classes. Again, like on Luminaries, you can earn points towards it. Get a free master class. His classes, his tutorials, his YouTube, all just an incredible resource. He's a really cool guy too. He's happy to answer your questions if you're doing that. So awesome stuff. Yeah, animation can be pretty hard. I know KeyShot's not
Yeah.
built for complex animations. It is getting easier, especially that we're adding keyframing. So we just added like a camera keyframing that makes it a lot easier to create really dynamic visuals from the camera. I mean, I was on a call about a week ago and I had to put together a little animation just to demo it. I was able to create this whole like 5-point view zooming through the product, and it took me like 30 seconds to do, which previous to that was very
Yeah,
much longer.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so now, I mean, like that's the benefit though, is like this built-in animations for like turntables or environment. It's really easy to just drag and drop those in. So even if you're not trying to create complex animations, you have the ability to create a visual that's pretty robust still. Here
Absolutely.
we got a question. This is a good question. Are you working on a single workstation, or are you guys actually using network rendering at your company?
Right now I'm working on a single workstation. I'm pretty much doing it all through my computer. We're looking into, some server options and some other stuff with the rendering, because as I'm getting into more complex stuff, they're taking more time. So, as you start, because some of these I'm having to really up the sample count and, a lot of stuff to capture some of the detail and cut down on some, there's a lot of tweaking there, and they're starting to take a little bit longer than they had been previously. And so, we're looking into some solutions, but generally right now I'm at the point where I'll literally have everything queued up and ready to go and let it render overnight. Or if I've got a lot, let it render over the weekend, So
That's the best way to do it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's something to comment on, because I actually during COVID is when I started using GPU rendering in KeyShot a lot, just because I was on kind of an underpowered workstation, but my GPU is really strong. If you guys are using GPU instead of CPU rendering, feel free to crank up that sample count. I know there's nothing that really tells you can, but like let's say you're rendering 200 samples on CPU, try 2000 samples on GPU, and you'll be surprised with how fast it renders and to the degree that it renders. So I don't know if you guys are using GPU or CPU, what your preference is
Right
there.
now, just CPU, but I think we're getting ready at some point to switch over and be able to have some GPU capacity, which would be absolutely fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like that's been a lifesaver for a lot of people, especially when their CPUs are underpowered or they just don't have access to it. But that network rendering also helps a lot. I mean, we have a network here, and it's really helpful because we have multiple people rendering all the time. If I'm not leaving something over the weekend to render, I can just throw it out on the network and I can keep working. I don't have to let it take over my workspace. So that's always a positive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. Anybody else got any more questions? Go ahead and throw them in the Q&A. If not, we can kind of wrap things up here. I'll give it a couple more seconds here to see if anybody comes in, unless there's anything else you can think of off the top of your head that you might have not covered that you want to cover.
Not too much. I mean, we've covered quite a bit of it. Yeah, I'm super thankful for the opportunity to get to share some of our story with you guys. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great having you here. Talking about materials, specifically transparent materials and translucent materials, LEDs. There's always a conversation. I think we talked about it before we actually hopped on here, where people have issues kind of backlighting LEDs or getting that clarity going through. I know a lot of that comes down to like CAD that's built properly.
Yep.
If there's any intersections in your CAD when you're trying to render, you're going to get those like blacked out spaces that don't look realistic. So hammer that, making sure your CAD is solid before you start. That's always a positive.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any more questions coming in here. So yeah, maybe we can wrap it up. I guess I just wanted to remind everyone one last time about KeyShot World Chicago, which is happening October 18th. Also wanted to plug our customer story with Marina and HiViz over on our website. Definitely go check that out. Give that a read if you have some time, and check out HiViz's website. They got a lot of really awesome products. We'll also have this webinar up on YouTube early next week, probably Tuesday morning, I would say. So if you missed anything, or you want to reference something in particular, or you want to tell your friends to come watch, that's a good place to find us. Keep on the lookout for that, as well as any of our other upcoming quick tips and tutorials that we have coming out. And on that note, I really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us today. Marina, any closing thoughts or comments?
Yeah, so I really just want to close out with, encouraging you guys to, keep learning and finding creative ways to grow. I wanted to, I put in some pictures of my team and stuff here because these people have invested a lot of time and money and let me really just, grow and become a better designer and a better asset to our marketing team. Whether you're doing freelance work for yourself or you're working with a team and stuff and you're a leader of your team, invest in yourself, invest in your team, and, keep growing, keep having that hunger to grow, because there's so much awesome stuff out there and there's fun new tutorials and stuff coming out like every week. There's so much new stuff. Just keep getting in there to keep learning, because you saw where I started and where I've ended up, and hopefully we'll just keep getting better from there. You can always get where you're trying to go. You just put the time into yourself and into others as well.
Fantastic message. Thank you so much for being here, Marina. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you to everybody joining us. Thank you so much.
All right, cheers everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks all.